Welcome back to 3 Ways to Build. Today I'm going to be showcasing a build that I've actually had kind of sitting on the back burner for quite a while. It's a windmill design that I think is really cool and I will eventually be incorporating into my 1.18 survival world, but we'll get there when we get there. For now, let's look at our basic windmill. And here we are. Yup. This thing is really bad. I think we've hit a new low for this series on just how lame I can make the basic version of the build. But before you laugh at it too much, I mean, go ahead and laugh at it a little bit, but before you laugh at it too much, there's a very specific reason that I chose this design. The thing about this design, and kind of the central theme that I want to work off of today, is that when you're adding some sort of component or shape to a build, it's gotta have a point, you know? Of course, it's important that it looks cool and is aesthetic and everything, but the most important thing when making different components of a build is that they have a purpose. For example, this large bit right here. Why is it made out of stone bricks? Why does it have to be round? And same thing here. The walls are nice for a little bit of extra depth, but why are there walls? Why are we using 8 pillars of log? Why is there a kind of rounded, almost like a baseball cap roof on the top? Now, you could argue that I'm reading into this a little bit too much, and that's fair, but as a Minecraft builder, it is my job to dissect and to criticize my own projects, especially the ones that I make incredibly lame and stupid on purpose. So with this idea of different components each having their own purpose in mind, let's take this in the complete opposite direction and make a ridiculous, totally off the wall, totally unrealistic windmill that'll be our insane build for today. Alright, now remember, before we look at this, it's important to keep in mind that what I was going for with this build was to make sure that every single component, every individual piece of the structure had its own purpose, its own function, and all that kind of stuff to really make things feel more realistic and grounded. Now, in order to accomplish that, I actually went with one of my favorite aesthetics, which I really like a lot, and I know you guys do too, which of course is steampunk. So, without further ado, here we are. What a behemoth of a build this thing is. I'll put up a little bit of a time lapse on screen right now so you guys can see me building the first bit of it, like the actual inner fan structure here. But yeah, I couldn't really get too much of a time lapse going because a lot of this, well, really all of the build actually was done entirely without any previous planning, just done on the spot. Kind of hard to make time lapses when you're not really sure that you're going to be keeping anything that you're building. Anyways, into the build itself, right? I wanted to merge the ideas of a windmill and the steampunk style and make sort of like a giant wind turbine, like power generation unit. And yeah, overall, I just really wanted to go nuts with the steampunk style. I feel like the fans and the metal grating that you'd see in some sort of industrial machinery like this lends itself perfectly to this color palette and these block choices. Now to explain the concept I was just talking about, right? Every little bit of the structure having a purpose. So starting in the middle here, we have these 4 individual fans, and you can see they've got these really cool copper fan blades. A little bit hard to see because of all the iron bars and everything. These guys look awesome. They need to be supported by something, right? They're not just gonna be floating in the middle of this turbine here. So I've got these cross-shaped beams going across the top and the bottom. You can see how they connect to the side here. If you're thinking about how the fans would be spinning, they'd be pulling air up into this machine, creating like a bit of an updraft. And that's why I put hay bales underneath the campfires in this area, and this area, and these 2 over here, just so the smoke would be traveling up quite a bit higher to create the illusion of an updraft coming in from these fans. So I had these inner 4 rings, right? And I wanted to have a larger ring around the outside because I'm thinking that each one of these individual rings probably has a lot of vibration. Between all like the wind and stuff coming up through, and of course the rotation of the fan blades, these guys, realistically speaking, would be spinning and generating a lot of vibrations. So I needed to have some sort of tough support chassis that could hold all of these different 4 components in. Got a little bit of the acacia trapdoor shroom light stuff going on for a little bit of aesthetic decor, of course, and they're all attached at the corners, and of course they're attached to each other. And then I was thinking, like, this entire structure needs to be supported somehow. I didn't want to have just regular pillars because that's not very steampunky. I wanted to incorporate some gears, maybe some weird mechanical parts and stuff, so I've got these really creepy looking kind of spider legs going on here. Then I've got on all of the corners these kind of sub legs here, these are not really meant for movement as much as they're meant for stability. Like I mentioned before, right? There's a lot of movement, a lot of vibration going on with all these fans spinning constantly as the thing generates power. So you need something to kind of anchor it into one spot, and that's why with these legs, their little claw thingies at the bottom are actually submerged into the ground to provide a little bit of extra stability. And then last but not least, of course, the red wires. You know, I was thinking, like, if this thing is going to be generating power, it has to be sending the power somewhere, of course. You don't just have something generate power and then not do anything with it. That's a little bit silly. So I've got each one of these main turbines has a red wire. I just left them dangling for the time being. Not only does the red add a little bit of extra color, you get these really funky shapes as they kind of drape off the sides and drag around on the ground. So yeah, this build is really fantastic, and I love the way it turned out. It was a little bit iffy at first. You know, I did a lot of outlining, tried a couple different shapes and everything with the center disc and the 4 turbines, and I even actually did like a little sketch too, which was pretty fun. It would be really cool to build this in survival one of these days, but like the other builds in the insane category in this series, it's really not realistic. But what if it was? What if we took some of the more iconic colors from this build, kept the kind of generally vaguely steampunk vibes, and we also of course need to keep the core concept of every little component having a reason for being there. Let's take all of those concepts and this color palette and scale it back down to a more like reasonable, realistic windmill size, and I'll show you guys what we come up with. Oh, and one other thing real quick. This build looks fantastic from a distance. Like, look at that. That is so cool. I just noticed it, like watching it emerge out of the fog and stuff. That is creepy, and I love it. And here we have the last of our 3 builds, the balance build. And yes, I know it is a lot smaller than the insane build, really more in line with the size of our silly little very basic build from earlier in the video. But hear me out. What this thing lacks in size, it definitely makes up for with purpose and level of detail. As you can see, of course, we're sticking with a very traditional windmill shape, but what really matters is the innards here. You can see that the thing is very open, and I really put a lot of thought into how something like this would actually move and turn and function if it existed in real life. So starting with the fan blades here, we've got a much more interesting fan blade design with the banners and the wool, and that feeds into an axle going this way and a teensy little cute little mini fan blade back here, because you know, it would be cute. And here's where the little bits of steampunk come back into this balance build here. So this axle would rotate, and it's connected by some sort of like gear shifting mechanism to this axle, which then rotates in of itself all the way down into the basement, where it would be grinding up against this hardened stone at the bottom here. Now, what is it doing exactly? Well, it is grinding grain, because in the olden days, that is what windmills and other kinds of mills would be doing. Whether it was a water mill or a windmill like this one, the end goal was to drive a giant hard object, like this copper thing over here, into the ground and have it rotate. That way you could grind up grain into flour. But yeah, going back, you can see that I've left this very open so you could get a better idea of the innards. Of course, we're using a lot more wood than our funky little crab leg thing over there, but that is just because wood makes a lot more sense for like an old-timey design. And of course, rather than an enclosed middle section, we've got these 4 pillars with lots of little details, you know, like the signs and the gates and fences and all those weird little things, like this cool little arch, really just meant to look like it's very reinforced and providing support, and it's all very well held together. Because like on our giant build, this thing is going to be rotating, it's going to be spinning around, it's going to be causing torque, and you want something reinforced and strong enough to handle these axles as they spin and not just, you know, break down. Was originally going to introduce it to my 1.18 survival series, which of course I haven't done yet. I'm going to do a bit of a shameless plug here, but seriously, like, I'm having so much fun with our 1.18 survival world. We're doing some really amazing builds, and we're doing some collaborative stuff with a whole bunch of my real life friends, which has been an absolute blast. We've just started our first mega project, so if you're interested in that, there is going to be a link to it in the top right corner right now. Okay, shameless plug out of the way. Sorry about that, guys, but really do go check it out. Let's get into the build tutorial for this one. Like the other build tutorials in this series, I'm going to make it short and sweet. Not going to go through every single individual block and its purpose, but I just want to be able to show you guys how I made this thing from start to finish. Starting with this bottom bit, you're going to take some dark oak logs logs, and you're going to arrange them in this pattern right here where you have 1 and then 3 blocks over, 1 block in on both sides. Do the same thing over here and repeat this pattern continuously until you have a little circle forming. Make every one 2 blocks tall. Then add a composter and a temporary block, I'm using dirt in this case, on top of all of them. Take your spruce stairs, and for the ones that are on these 4 corners, here, you are going to put a stair facing upside down against the dirt on all 4 sides. And for the ones in the cardinal direction, so these 2 and those 2, you are going to have 3. You're not going to have one on the intersection there. Next up, take spruce slabs and bring them across. 3 here, 2 here, 2 here. So you've got 3, 2, 2. And repeat this pattern going all the way around. Now, anytime there's a weird gap here, you're just going to put a trapdoor and fill that right in. Take 12 spruce planks and do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. On top of each of the dirts, you're going to put a dark oak log, a dark oak slab, and then fill in the in-between area with the spruce fences. On the inside here, do 1, 2, 3 in each corner with stone, and put a composter on the outer section. Put a ring of stone slabs in the middle like that, and then take a grindstone and put one on each side. Then on top of each of those composters, you're going to do 7 spruce logs, 2 more composters, which are invisible for some very strange reason. I've been having this issue and I really don't understand what's going on with that. There we go, finally. 2 composters and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more logs. You're gonna do this cool pattern with dark oak with the full blocks, stairs, and trapdoors here and here. You wanna make sure that the hole is facing in the direction that the windmill fan is gonna be protruding from. Gonna take some dark oak fences and dark oak gates, and you're gonna do this cool pattern where you have a fence on either side, and then you have a gate right in the middle. You're gonna do 2 here, 2 on the other end, 1 under here, and 1 under there. Now we're gonna make that cool little arch thing on the top, which means we're gonna take 2 stairs and have them in that formation, put a slab on top, 2 more slabs, stair, and then repeat on the other end. Then put a trapdoor here and here, 2 more slabs, and duplicate on the other side. Just like that. Oh yeah, forgot to mention earlier, but you're gonna have this cool pattern of fences and gates on the bottom of all 4 edges of our big column thing. Put a ring of signs, 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks up, around each face of the block on all 4 columns. Do the same thing on the composters, only on the outer 2 faces though. We'll have something be going in the middle. One more little funky fence gate pattern around the edges here. These are all just acting as reinforcements to make these pillars look as reinforced and sturdy as possible. Then using a really wacky combination of slabs, stairs, and some full blocks, you're going to create this cool little pattern on both the top and bottom of this middle section with the composters, leaving a 1x1 hole right here for the axle. And speaking of the axle, it is now time to start adding those in. Start off by just having this weird like log thing running through your windmill, and it's going to have a polished deep slate at both ends, and of course the main axle is going to be made out of polished basalt. Then on your front here, you're going to follow this pattern with the white wool. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, they're going invisible again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 2 more going up. Repeat that, just flip it by 90 degrees. Now you're going to take a little bit more white wool, and on the intersections, you're going to fill in this bit with more wool. Add a bunch of banners to these behind sections if you just want a little bit of extra detail. Definitely not required, but I think it looks pretty neat. And then around the other side here, opposite from where we had the banners, you're going to be adding in some fences and gates, using fences whenever there's a vertical section, and gates otherwise when there's a horizontal section. Then for the cute little back fan blade, you're going to have 2 fences or gates going out in all of the cardinal directions, and then follow this very easy pattern. 1, 2, 1 on the edge, 1, 2, 1 on the edge. I guess they're actually the ends and not the edges, but I already said edge, so whatever. Now for the giant main axle, you're going to start with a smooth basalt. rather a polished basalt. I am bad at these names. And you're going to bring it all the way up through the middle section right here, and eventually it's going to stop with a 1 block gap between it and the other axle. 2 rings of trapdoors, slab on top of that, stair, and 1 more ring of trapdoors around the edge here. 1 more ring of trapdoors at the same level as these signs down in the bottom bit. Above and below each, you're gonna have an iron bar. This is really just a little bit of flair. It almost looks like a gear. Kind of, if you look at it from the top. It's just a little bit of extra detail on the otherwise very plain axle. Alright, now for the bottommost section, using a combination of stone, andesite, and cobble, you're going to be making a bottom wall here. I like adding a few slabs and stuff on the inside here just to give it a little bit of interesting depth and stuff. Kind of makes it look like the inside of a cave. A little bit, pretty small. Take really whatever like dark colored texture you want and layer in some stairs and slabs and full blocks, and now you have your grinder section. I'm using a mixture of cobble, deep slate, and deep slate bricks, but really, it's up to you, man. Now for the actual grinding bit, you're gonna do a polished deep slate, a regular copper block, 2 stairs, 1 there, and 1 there, and then a 1 final ring of acacia trapdoors around the edge here. Oh, and an iron bar there. And on the other side. You can add in whatever little details you think fits the look. I'm going with a very rustic, old-timey look because it's meant to be a, very old-fashioned grain grinding windmill, but really you can do whatever you want here. And similarly, when you're doing the final decorations and little bits of detail around the windmill, you can do pretty much whatever you want. I've done a very basic detail job of just a mixture of the brown concrete powder, coarse dirt, and regular old grass, just randomly sprinkled across, cause why not? And with that build tutorial all taken care of, I believe we are out of video time for today. If you liked today's video, don't forget to leave a like down below and subscribe if you are not subscribed already. Ouch. Until next time, my dudes, this has been Leon, and I will see you all in the next 3 ways to build video. Take care, my friends.